Okay, everyone, let's get to it, shall we? Okay, so how went working in After Effects? Okay, for the most part. Yeah? Okay, now, trust me when I say your experience working in After Effects is going to continue to grow, okay? I want you to honestly take some inspiration and some experience going all the way back to week 2 in here, right? There is some chaos and some pandemonium learning how to animate inside of Photoshop, right? Your experience was next to nothing, so then we all kind of collectively began to freak out. Now we're ninjas at it, okay? You're going to go through a very similar experience working in After Effects. It's going to be chaos and pandemonium as we learn this new animation system, but trust me when I say things are going to get a lot better, okay? This week we're going to continue working inside of After Effects by looking at a really neat, fun extension of our animation tools called the Puppet tool. And let me just log into D2L real fast. If you haven't noticed already, I've published the week 10 content inside of D2L. So if you go to content, we're in week 10, character animation, and we have a goal this week, and it's a fun little project called Banana Man. And Banana Man is going to give us a great opportunity to learn how to do some very basic, simple, low-level character animation, right? Because last week, if you really take a step back and look at it, what we participated in would be like the object animation process. Animating a bouncing ball as an object, not necessarily a character, right? Today, we're going to work with characters, and we're going to look at the puppet animation tool, or the puppet tool, or the pushpin tool as it's often referred to. Now, you're going to need these assets right here, the Banana Man assets. I've already gone ahead and download them on my machine. And if we take a look at it, there they are, Banana Man. It's just a zipped archive. And if we were to open it up and look at the contents of that folder, there it is, okay? Banana Man, there it is. We have these 3 Photoshop files. One of the things that I really honestly like about working inside of After Effects is that in every sense, it's kind of our global Swiss Army knife. We can import any type of file into After Effects and begin to animate with it. It's an incredibly flexible and powerful tool set when it comes to animating just any type of layer out there, which makes it 2 thumbs up, way up for me. Okay, I like it. Anything can go in, and we can pretty much publish to any format. However, one of the big challenges of working in After Effects is understanding this media management system, okay? Because not only are we going to have to manage our After Effects project file, we also have to directly manage all of the assets that we import into After Effects. This is very different from the way Photoshop manages all of its media, right? Photoshop, when we import a picture into our composition in Photoshop, it internally kind of packages and collects all of that information. Your Photoshop document turns into like a little briefcase of information. After Effects is not like that at all, right? After Effects externally references and links like a web page to all of this media. Some of you guys kind of interfaced with a challenge that you will continue to interface with in that your media got unlinked. And what showed up in After Effects were those lovely color bars, right? Let me show you what I'm talking about. So these are just 3 flat Photoshop documents that we can work with over in After Effects. I've already gone ahead and launched After Effects, but let me start a new project just so we got a clean installation of the app itself. Now, we need to import some media in. All of this media is going to go over here into our project tab. Give me a couple ways that we can import media into After Effects. Double-click where, Arthur?
Project area.
Yeah, and I'd say like the empty area of the project tab, like down here. The double-click is going to fire off the import action. So double-click. Let's try it again, double click, there we go, and we'll get that import dialog box. In addition, you can also go File, Import Files. Try real hard, and let me go to my desktop. Here it is, Banana Man Assets, and there they all are, okay? You can even grab multiples at the same time, and then go ahead and import those in. Now, when you import a document into After Effects, it makes a link to its imported location. So if you remember, all of my stuff was, I unzipped my archive on my desktop, right? Now there's a path to that file, and it's explicit, okay? It's an explicit reference to that location. Now here on the Mac, the location of that file is usually going to begin with a / and then user, right? And another / student, another / desktop. If you're working on a PC, that path is very, very different. What's it going to start with if you're working on the Windows side of things? More often than not, it's going to start with like a C : / right? And then the location of wherever it is that you downloaded this stuff. It's looking for a C drive. If you imported it from your desktop on a PC, it's looking for that explicit location. If it doesn't find that location, it's going to freak out. And it's not going to import, or it's not going to show your stuff. Okay? Let me show you a really great example of this. And here's a great trick. Real quick, what do we need to build or create inside of After Effects before we can start animating? A composition. You got it right. Over in Photoshop, it was our canvas. In After Effects, it's our composition. So we need to create a composition first. How do we do that? Yeah, absolutely. So if we go to the top of the screen, and I'm not sure why my menus are getting cut off on that projector. I apologize. Let me see here. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. That's something that's new. But under the composition pull-down menu at the top of the screen, here we go. Now you can kind of see it a little bit. We're going to new composition. Okay, that's one way of making a composition. Let me show you another that's a little bit faster and equally as powerful. If we go down to the bottom of the project pane, this button right there, that guy, okay, is going to create a composition. So if we click on it, we get that exact same composition settings dialog box. It's identical, right? However, our composition needs to be generated with some very specific composition settings. Luckily for us, one of our media assets already has that information established for us. And specifically, it's the backdrop PSD file. Okay? If you look at the backdrop PSD, its frame width and height perfectly match our composition setting, which is 720 by 480, or our desired composition frame width and height. So let me show you the trick. Instead of having to create a new composition and then manually go enter in all that data, here's the power user trick. It's pretty great. I wish someone would have shown this to me when I was in y'all's shoes. And I'll zoom in so you guys can see precisely what I'm doing. But here's the trick. We're going to take this media asset, and we're going to drag and drop, oops, get the icon, drag and drop it onto the Make New Composition icon at the bottom of the Project tab. And check it out. It automatically makes a composition that matches the name of the asset we created it with. And if we zoom out, check it out. It even goes as far as placing that asset in the composition. Okay? It's a great, great trick. Just, I am, yeah. So I just dragged the asset onto the Make New Composition button at the bottom of the Project tab, and then boom, it does all the hard work for us. In addition, all of these settings are not written in stone, so if we need to go in and change the duration of our composition, or maybe the frame rate's off, where can we go to make those changes? Bingo, yeah. Whoever said that gets the gold star for the day. And once again, if you return to your top of the screen, to the pull-down menu, composition, composition settings. We'll get that exact same composition settings dialog box, and we can make any of the changes that we need. Maybe I want to have my frame rate be 24, or maybe change the pixel aspect ratio. We can do this after we create the composition. This is a really, really handy trick when you're trying to create an animation that's based off of existing media, like a video file. Instead of having to manually enter in all this stuff, drag it onto the button, After Effects will do an analysis of that asset and create a composition to match that asset's specific info. Oops. Let's put this back to 0.91. Okay. All right. So the question that we ran into a minute ago, and the problem that we had, was what happens when we get all those color bars, right? I open up my project file. I did some work at home where I was working over in the design lab. Life is good, right? Why am I getting those color bars? Those color bars are After Effects' method of telling you that a media file, and specifically that media file, is unlinked. It doesn't know where that asset is currently residing on your machine. Let me show you a really great example. Pop quiz, where did I import all of my media files from? Do you remember? The desktop, right? I unzipped the archive on the desktop, and that was the location that I imported all the media from, right? So After Effects is thinking that these files are on the desktop, okay? Watch what happens when I change these, one of these files' location. Let's just do backdrop. Hide After Effects real fast, and here's my stuff. I want to take my backdrop file, and I'm going to put it in another folder on my Mac here. I'm going to put it in my instructor folder. Change its location, okay? It's no longer in the, it's no longer in the spot that I imported it from. And if we return to After Effects, you're going to get this little popover. Don't freak out. You didn't lose your work. It just doesn't know where this asset is, okay? Just hit OK. If you read the effect, it says, hey, I can't find this file. What do you want me to do? Well, let's go ahead and fix it. After Effects didn't delete any information. It just doesn't know how to draw the media file. If you look carefully down on the timeline, it still recognizes that that layer is a participant of this composition. Any keyframing you did, any work that you did on that layer or within the comp is absolutely still preserved inside the After Effects project file. So you didn't lose any work. We just need to point After Effects to the current location of that media file. Doing this is really, really easy inside of After Effects. However, it kind of requires us to participate in a head scratcher of a moment. Look at it. You can see the icon over here in the bin. We're getting the color bars, okay? The color bars is a calibration image often used in the television world, but it's After Effects' way of communicating that this asset is unlinked. So to fix this, I'm going to right-click on this asset, and believe it or not, I'm going to go to Replace Footage. And ultimately, we're going to replace it with itself, which is kind of strange, right? Because the last thing you want to do in your mind probably right now is that I want to replace this information. But it's a great way to very quickly relink all of these assets. If the guys at Adobe are listening to my live stream, they should change this. Or they should have another option that says relink instead of replace. It makes a little bit more sense. So now we need to go find that asset. And like I mentioned a minute ago, it's in my instructor folder. So let me go into Pat's stuff. And there it is. Okay. Now the moment I hit the return key, check it out. The asset's back. We've redirected After Effects to the current location of these media files. My image is back. Of course, all the information that I put in my timeline is still preserved. We're back up and running. So if you're getting color bars, File, Replace. Okay? Let's do it one more time just so everyone's kind of up and running here. I want to take my my backdrop that I moved into my instructor folder and put it back in its original location. And now when I return to After Effects, it's freaking out again. It's saying, hey, I don't know where this file is. It's been moved. Well, that's okay. We can manage this. If we right-click on it. I'm sorry, I said File. It's not File. It's right-clicking. Replace Footage, File. Okay? And we're going to be replacing it with itself. Desktop, Banana Man Assets. There it is. Whoop. We're back up and running. So we have some media that we have to manage. Here's my yeah. Go ahead. Question.
But does it like restart the whole animation?
No, you didn't.
Does it still keep
It keeps everything that you'd done previously. We're just redirecting it towards the picture. So you didn't actually lose any work. We just need to repoint After Effects to the current location of your media.
brings the original image back without altering any.
You got it.
animation.
Doesn't affect the keyframes one bit. Okay.
Alright, thank you.
So we have some media now that we have to manage. And let me give you a suggestion. This is something that I do for all of my project files. I try to create little bundles, okay? I've created a folder here called Banana Man Animation. This is like the root project folder for my animation. And all of the media and all of the files that I'm going to be using for this animation, I'm going to place in that folder. That way I have one thing to drag and drop onto my thumb drive at the end of the day, right? I have one thing to upload to Dropbox. I have one folder to archive on my hard drives at home, right? It makes it really, really easy to manage. Everything is in one place. I have a subfolder in here called Assets. Out there in the real world, often a lot of folks change this folder's name to like Media. If you're working with an old school video editor, it may be Scratch. But I have a subfolder that contains all of the raw assets that I used to create my animation. And there they all are, my Banana Man stuff. And then, of course, I have the After Effects project file at the root of my animation folder. That way I don't have to go in and dig into a couple folders to find the project file that makes my animation work over in After Effects. This is a good system. I use it all the time, okay? Okay, you guys ready to keep going? Let's learn about the puppet tool. All right, let's jump back over into After Effects real fast. And let's get my man in here. I want to just place this inside of my scene. And as you can see, I have some work in here that I need to do. The image of my man is just much, much too big, right? It's humongous. I need to make some pretty big sweeping changes to my little man. How can I scale this guy down? I need to make him smaller. I want him to fit inside the frame itself. What do I do here? What am I looking to do? Yeah, Liam, go ahead. If you have a boundary of black, okay, that means your composition settings don't match the background settings, the background size. Let me see what you got. Okay. So you're also looking at, you're just looking at the man. Go back over here to you need to create a composition.
Yes.
Okay. Let's do that first. Drag your backdrop.psd layer onto the Create New Composition icon at the bottom of your project panel, and then you'll have a composition.
The D2L says that we need the book, right?
Does it say we need a book? You don't need a book. Yeah, you don't need the book to do this. You can do this all visually. Okay. If you look at D2L, the target for this assignment is the video that I put on D2L. We're just trying to make the guy walk over to the banana peel and then slip and fall. That's kind of it. That's the target for this animation. Okay. Now, how we do this is pretty entertaining. It's a tremendous amount of fun. Let's go back to scaling down my little guy here. He's humongous. He's a giant, right? How do I make my guy smaller? Yeah, there are little there's a bounding box that you can grab and manipulate, but oftentimes that bounding box, especially in this particular situation, is kind of a challenge to see. Yeah, right? Bingo, that's it. All layers are assigned a transform item, okay? So here's our man. If we click on the disclosure arrow and twirl open its properties, we have our transform item. And if we click on this arrow once again, here are all the 5 basic animation channels that all layers are going to get. And specifically, we're looking for the scale. Right now, both these percentages are linked. So if we were to left click and drag, woo, there it goes. And now we can scale my guy down a little bit and start having fun with him. Here's a great little trick. Often, getting into the transform item is just kind of a pain in the butt. There's a lot of clicking in here. It kind of brings to the surface one of the biggest complaints about working inside of After Effects, and that it's a very clicky interface. There's a lot of menus that you have to open up just to do something pretty simple. When we start working with the keyboard shortcuts, some of that clickiness goes away. So here's a great series of keyboard shortcuts that will help you work with specific channels, these transform channels. If you hit the S key, give it a try real fast. What happens if you select one of your layers and hit the S key? Yeah. Hit the S key, and you can see that just the scale channel pops open, which is pretty neat, right? Now I could hit the S key one more time, and it collapses it. So once we'll open it, twice we'll close it. S is for scale. As one might imagine, P, as in Papa, or pomegranate, is for position. What do you think rotation is? R, yep, you got it right. And you get to talk like a pirate. It's kind of fun. Here's the challenge. What about opacity?
Oh.
You think it'd be O, right? But it's not. It's T. T is in transparency or tango. Yeah. And then A is for anchor point. Okay? Good keyboard shortcuts to have at your disposal. Makes getting in and getting out of these transform channels very, very easy. Okay? So let's zoom out here and start taking a look at how we're going to get our little guy to move. Now, at the moment, my animation is pretty basic, right? Huh? What? He looks like maybe a little bit, yeah. Excuse me. Okay. So right now, I can only do item level animation. I want to be able to move this guy's arms and move this guy's legs, but it's a complete single layer. It's a flat drawing, right? There is no sort of articulated, rig inside of this that's going to deform our character. At the moment, really the only thing that we can do is that we could, move it around a little bit, right? We can rotate it and scale it up and scale it down. That's about it though, right? Item level transformations. So let's go in and start adding some really cool push pins into our character that will allow us to create what's called the deformation mesh, right? It's really a whole lot of fun. Okay, I love working with the puppet tool. It's pretty cool. You can find the push pin tool or the puppet tool at the top of our interface inside of our After Effects toolbar. And it's that one right there, the one that ironically is a push pin. So if we go ahead and fire off the puppet tool, or the push pin tool as it's often referred to, you're going to get this little icon, and if we just click, we're going to create a control point at that surface. I want to back up. It's preserved the settings that I used for my morning section, so let me just, there we go. All right, rock and roll. So one push pin point really isn't all that magical. Notice that as I cursor over that yellow dot, it changes to a move arrow. And okay, that's interesting. If I drag it left and right, up and down, but it really certainly doesn't give me the compelling deformation that I'm looking for. The push pin tool or the puppet tool requires us to work in pairs. We need two of these things to at least really take advantage of the most basic rudimentary system in the push pin tool. So let's add another one in. I'm going to put it right here, kind of around his armpit. And now with two, check it out. Okay, but I can stretch it. Aha, that's kind of cool. So we're getting there. I want to hit undo. There we go. Oops, I hit undo too many times. Let's put in maybe one that represents like a spine and some hips. And with more push pin tools in here, there we go. We can get some really fun deformation. Whee! Hello! Welcome to the push pin tool. Ideally, what we're striving for and what we're looking to create inside of our character is a series of push pin points that kind of resembles a basic skeletal structure. So I'll want a couple in here to represent like the hips. Maybe I put one here at the hips. Of course, the kneecaps are going to get some. Maybe two down here for the feet, so we can get some nice deformation on the feet. Of course, his other arm needs some as well. Elbow, maybe wrist, elbow. Put one here for the head. It's the basic system. Nothing too crazy. We don't want to go nuts on here, but ultimately we're giving ourselves the ability to deform our character in some really fun, interesting ways. Okay. Wow, 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 wow. Okay. It's a lot of fun. Cool, huh? Pretty cool. Now, in addition, if we want to increase the quality of our deformation, look carefully here. I have a little triangulated mesh that's being imprinted on top of my layer, right? the number of triangles on the mesh is absolutely going to drive the quality of our deformation. So if we want some really fine deformations along our character, we have to go in and increase the number of triangles on that mesh. Now I have my push pin tool still active, and you can see that under triangles, it's currently set to 350. So let's do this. Let's put it at 1,000. And you can see that now I have a whole bunch of polygons, more finely describing the deformation of my character. It won't be as jagged, which is pretty neat. Hello. Ooh, look at that. That's kind of fun. His ear kind of collapses in on himself. Okay. Now, let's take a look at what the push pin tool is actually doing, because there's some technology under the hood that we, at the very least, need to be aware of. If we go back down into our layers palette, or our timeline, excuse me, and just completely collapse all of its information, let's open it one at a time, right? So now we have an effect, and then we have our transform area. The push pin tool is technically an effect, or the puppet tool is technically an effect. So we're always going to find its options and its settings in that effects area. If we scroll open its area by clicking on the disclosure triangle, we're going to find there's the puppet tool itself. Let's open it up, and here are a lot of its options. One thing to point out is this reset button. If you monumentally screw some stuff up here, okay, let's go in and just really, and you're like, whoa, Pat, this is strange. I just want to get it back to the beginning. Hit this reset button. You're not going to delete any of your push pins, but it is going to return them to their original location, okay? Great one to remember. It's kind of the master reset for your animation, okay? If we want to go in and start tweaking individual pins themselves, or perhaps we want to delete one, now we have to go into Mesh 1, okay? Let's open it up, and specifically, we need to go into the deformation category to find all of our puppet pins, our push pins, and there they all are. And then from here, we can do any number of things, but one of those things is deletion. And I just hit the delete key, and the push pin point at the top of his head is now gone. So this is the area, this deformation category of options is where we're going to find individual push pin values and keyframes. One of the great things about the push pin is that when you initially create them, it should automatically create a keyframe on every single push pin, and it did, which is very, very helpful. So here's puppet pin number 16. It automatically created a keyframe for me. The guys and gals down at Adobe are making it easy for us just to get up and running with animating our character, right? So if I advance my playhead to frame 20 here, I now can make some changes. And FYI, if you're just trying to move your push pins, you don't necessarily have to be in the tool. The direct selection tool will also be sufficient. I like working with the direct selection tool because the cage goes off, that triangulated cage. There we go. And you see that because it automatically created a keyframe for us on frame 1, when we created the pin, advancing the playhead and then changing the pose of the character will get the animation that we're after. Okay? It's pretty great. It's pretty neat. It's a very, very simple way for us to go in and generate some animation. Keep in mind, we're building towards full-blown character animation inside of After Effects, right? This system is going to be a participant of that workflow. There's some great applications of the push pin system inside of our animation pipeline. Simple deformations and silly little animations like this can easily be done here in After Effects using the puppet tool or the push pin tool. So your mission this week is to create a very simple, basic animation of our little guy walking across the screen. If you return to D2L and look at the contents of our assignment sheet, you can see that it provided you with a fun little example of what we're after. Woo! There you go. Okay? It's real short. It's only 5 seconds. Okay? That's the target. When you're going through the process of animating your character walking across the screen, keep in mind the role of all those poses that we've been talking about over the last couple months. Remember how we created the walk cycle. Remember the contact, down, the passing, and the peak pose, okay? those poses can, should, and really need to be applied to our character to get the level of deformation and the illusion of movement that we're after. Okay? Don't forget about our animation pipeline. I've seen far too often that when we start talking about After Effects and just computer animation, people forget about all those principles that we talked about over the first 2 months. Those should absolutely be the driving factor of our decision-making process. Yeah?
Can we do the walking thing on Photoshop rather than After Effects?
We did,
When
right?
we first got started with this.
We did. Yeah, we did it all in Photoshop, right? Now we're trying to do something similar here in After Effects. Those poses that we studied a couple weeks ago should be applied to our little Banana Man, okay? So how are we going to pose Banana Man to establish a good contact pose? What is Banana Man going to have to look like to create a good peak pose or a good passing pose? Things that you're going to have to discover and create as you go through this animation cycle, okay? Okay, let's pretend that I'm done here working inside of After Effects and I'm ready to render out my project file and share it with YouTube, because this is, again, absolutely something I want to show people. Okay, I have my little arm waving here. Walk me through the process of rendering our animation. Yep, so we can go to the File, pull down menu, Export, this works too, and then Add to Render Queue. Now, if you're working in the most recent version of After Effects, this is a completely acceptable way of rendering your compositions. It didn't always used to look like this, okay? The export menu used to drive you to a completely different export engine that was horrible. So if it just says export and file, don't go over here. You're working with an old version of After Effects. I guess I'm kind of old school. You can do it this way now, which is fine. You're going to find me going this other direction. If you go into the composition pull-down menu, we also have an Add to Render Queue button in here. Both ways are going to do the exact same thing, so pick your favorite. Now help me out. Down here inside of our render queue, yeah, so what are the two things that we need to change?
Format settings.
Format settings, right. So we need to change some of the details in our output module. Ultimately, what is the output module responsible for doing? Yeah, this is going to determine how this animation is going to be rendered, right? This is the quality settings area, right? At what quality and what codec and what format the computer is going to draw our animation into. So let's change how the computer is going to draw our image by clicking on the word that says lossless. Now, I understand firsthand that it's going to pop open a very intimidating window. But luckily for us, the resolution to our render is inside of the Format Options button over there on the right. Now, I think it was Zach that asked me earlier in the week, hey, I tried to render my animation, but the codecs that were showing up in this list didn't include H.264. Okay? I only had a couple in there, and there's two reasons why you may only have a couple in there. First and foremost, if you're rendering on a PC, QuickTime may not even be available to you. Okay? Let me close out of here real fast. So this is the first thing that I want you to examine, is the format. Okay? If you're on a PC, QuickTime might not be an option in here. Okay? On the Mac, the QuickTime video file is a core architecture of our operating system. It's not just like an app that you install on top of the OS. It's part of the operating system. So it's always available to us. On a PC, it may not show up in this list. If it doesn't show up on this list, do yourself a favor and your long-term professional development a favor and go download the QuickTime video player and install it on your PC. QuickTime is an important media file inside the larger professional animation world, right? It's not an Apple Windows thing. I could really honestly care less about the Flame Wars. In all honesty, I'm pretty excited about those new computers that Microsoft came out with yesterday. Did you guys see those? Those, I mean, I want to lick them. I mean, they look good, right? They look really good. Their new Surface desktop looks badass, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I'm not here to start the flame war, but just install QuickTime. A lot of these codecs and format options will be available to you in After Effects the moment you install QuickTime.
If you have iTunes, you should already install QuickTime.
It should already be there. It should already be there. Most folks have QuickTime installed, but I run into people that don't, in all honesty, right? Okay. So install QuickTime. H.264 should pop in if you have QuickTime installed in your machine. If it still doesn't, okay, under your video codec options, if you still don't see H.264 in here, okay, do yourself a favor. If you subscribe to the Creative Cloud, go and download and install Media Encoder and Premiere Pro. Once you install those two apps, everything else is going to show up in this list. Codecs and formats are an extension to our video format library. We can install them, we can actually delete them, we can add third-party codecs into the mix. It's a pretty big system, in all honesty. I should show you, I should pop up my laptop and actually show you all the codecs that I have on my machine. It's comprehensive. My laundry list of codecs is probably 3 times as long as yours, okay? Because I have some other professional video applications installed on my laptop, okay? So go install Premiere Pro, and probably more specifically, if you don't have to install Premiere Pro, but Media Encoder is going to include all the codecs and all the formats that you see in this list, okay? So let's choose H.264, hit OK once, hit OK twice, and then finally, the last thing that we have to do before we can hit that magical render button is tell the computer where we're going to save our file by clicking on the output to, okay? So let's give it a good name and a destination. I'm going to put mine on my desktop, and we'll call this and version 01. There we go. Hit save, and then finally, the end of that sequence, we can hit the render button. It shouldn't take but a second. Happy render sound. Good morning, everyone. I just woke everyone up. I saw someone jump in the back. I apologize. But there it is. There's our animation, ready to go. Okay. Let's take a look at it in QuickTime. Give me the Academy Award right now. Pretty fantastic. Okay. Now, when you're done with this animation, please make sure you upload that right there, the rendered QuickTime movie, and I'm also going to need your After Effects project file as well. So those 2 things need to be uploaded to the Dropbox over the course of the next 7 days, okay? Other questions, show-stopping problems that you ran into when working in After Effects? Pretty fun, huh? Pretty cool. I like After Effects. It's my go-to app. I really do enjoy it. All right, other questions? All right, we got about 20 minutes left in class. Let's get a jump start on this animation. We can actually get some of this done today. At the very least, let's try to get some of these push pins in there. That way, if we run into any problems, we can get them taken care of and managed today during the class. Sound good? All right, let's do it. Yeah, that'd be great.